This episode is brought to you by Rough Day. I know exactly what you need. The new chocolate Kit Kat matcha is the perfect thing to make your days brighter. Available at all convenience stores. I am Kyrie Jimil Reyes from UMS 11 Mackenzie, and this is an episode of podcast. Have you ever heard about the 38th parallel? To what is it connected about? In this episode, we are going to talk about the 38th parallel and the talks for reunification. But let us start having some ideas on what is the 38th parallel and the reasons why the North and Southern Korean division happened. The North and South Korean division happened when Japan surrendered to the Allies in 1945. The Korean peninsula was split into two zones of occupation. The US controlled South and Russia controlled North. Korea was divided because of the split at the 38th parallel after World War II. It is divided more than 70 years because Korean peninsula became the unexpected casualty of the escalating Cold War between two rival superpowers, which are the United States and Soviet Unions, or the Russians. The 38th parallel or 38th parallel north refers to a circle of latitude that is 38 degrees north of the Earth's equatorial plane. It crosses Europe, the Mediterranean Sea, Asia, the Pacific Ocean, North America, and the Atlantic Ocean. To make it more specific, it is the formed border between the North and South Korea prior to the Korean War. Let us now move on to what happened in the 38th parallel. The 38th parallel was intended as a temporary division of the country, but the onset of the Cold War led to the establishment of a separate US-oriented regime in South Korea under Syngman Rhee and a communist regime in North Korea under Kim Il-sung. Cold War is an open yet restricted rivalry that is developed after World War II between the United States and the Soviet Union with their respective allies. After the outbreak of the Korean War between North and South Korea in June 1950, United Nations forces, which under U.S. General Douglas MacArthur had come to the aid of the South, moved north of the 38th parallel in an attempt to occupy North Korea. With the intervention of Chinese troops in support of the North, the war came to a stalemate roughly along that parallel. The ceasefire line, fixed at the time of the Armistice Agreement, gave South Korea possession of an eastern mountainous area north of the parallel, which was the major battlefront when the demarcation line was fixed. About the Korean reunification, this April 27, 2018, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un posed with South Korean President Moon Jae-in for a photo inside the Peace House at the border village of Panmunjom in demilitarized zone, South Korea. As South Korean President Moon Jae-in continues his push to declare an official end to the hostilities with North Korea, many are wondering, what will happen to Korea prospects for reunification? Some have already identified the fact that an official peace might make the reunification more difficult since North Korea's standing as an independent country would be legitimized. In many ways, Moon's effort appeared to be a deliberate attempt to achieve this outcome. The first and most important reason has to do with the simple fact that Korean reunification is already unviable. Even if Kim Jong-un decided to retire today, defect to the South, and hand over his entire country wholesale and peacefully, the process of reunification would be impossible to undertake. The technological and economic differences between the two countries are simply too great. Reunification would result in a deluge of new residents to the South, accompanied by an overwhelming financial burden to provide healthcare, employment, education, social services, and infrastructure. The costs would be simply prohibitive. I hope that you'll have a good day and thank you for listening. This podcast episode is brought to you by It feels good to make someone happy. Did you know Coke has been sharing happiness with the world for almost 100 years? So start sharing with your mom, your dad, your neighbor. Sharing happiness has never tasted so good. Enjoy life. Enjoy Coca Cola.